Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I think we'll get started. I'd like to welcome you to the Municipality of Thames Centre Regular Council meeting. The date is Monday, October the 30th, 2023, and the time is 5 p.m. Municipal office, we're located in the municipal office, council chambers at 4305 Hamilton Road in the village of Dorchester. And I would like to call this meeting to order. I've been advised that there are some additions to the agenda, so I'm going to refer to the clerk for this one.
Thank you, Your Worship. The agenda was amended today just to include the strategic plan presentation attachment from Ken Hewitt.
Okay, thank you. Disclosure. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, sir.
I'd like to make an addition to the agenda under new business.
All right. Okay. At this moment, I'd like to call to find out if there's any pecuniary interest and the nature thereof of any member of council. None? Okay. Moving on then, announcements. I do have a couple. First of all, I'd like to start tonight's meeting on a high note and take a moment to congratulate our very own Director of Fire and Emergency Services and Fire Chief Nick Dorkin and his dance partner, Michelle Marco from London Middlesex Paramedic Services on their win at the Ontario Provincial Police Association's Dancing with the Stars 911. The event was held this past Saturday night, and I'm told that it was really well attended. The event is held to support the Dave Mounsey Memorial Fund, which provides life-saving defibrillators in honor of fallen heroes. This year's tribute was to Sapper James Collier, and $36,000 was raised for this event. So I want to really heartily, on behalf of Council and the Thames Centre, congratulate Nick and Michelle for such a great job, and congratulations on the win. We know you have a career ahead of you. Okay. And then just as a minor thing, since there was, well, it's not really minor, since there was been so much discussion around the community complaints and calls into the municipality and the various councillors and that sort of thing, that CN Rail has finally repaired Highway 73 rail crossing. And to my estimation, when I was over it yesterday, they've done a pretty darn good job. So hopefully it lasts. Okay. We'll move on to presentations and delegations. Item number 5 on your agenda. So I'll call upon Ken Hewitt of Ken Hewitt Consulting to present to you the strategic plan, developing strategic priorities for the Council of for Municipal Council. So whenever you're ready, Ken, go ahead.
Okay, red's good. Sometimes red stop. Okay. Well, Your Worship and Council, I just want to say thank you for having me here tonight. I want to congratulate you and staff for taking this step upon yourselves to look at how we can better deliver our services to your constituents and communities. And we took the time to put together a pretty extensive survey to gather information across the municipality, the region, and get a number of responses. And I must say that the report and the uptick to the responses were very positive and very good, in the sense that surveys tend to sometimes always get responded more by agitated people, less than people who just care about their community. And I want to say that I think that what we were able to gather in terms of information in this particular survey was a good balance, and it was a very good reflection of council, I think, and where you're heading and what you're doing. So we do have a presentation, and I'm going to try my best, as I'm not very technically sound here, but we're okay. And I just want to make note that what we're presenting today is for information purposes only. It really is at this stage what we've gathered, both from the public, from our previous meeting last week with council, and some of the feedback and comments that were made. We've added some of that to the slides. And from this, it goes back to council for more deliberation, as well as with staff. And at some point, it'll come back in front of council with some budget items, as well as thoughts and ideas as you continue to drill down deeper into this report. So there are no decisions being made, certainly no direction that's coming from what's being presented today, other than for your own information. And we have it working. Okay. So, the up arrow? Okay. Yes, sir. So, just to bring you back up to date, we're going to speak about the methodology, how we put this survey together. We want to speak to some of the features in terms of security, because many of the questions that were asked, since this was an online survey, was, the integrity of the data and the information that was coming in, and the confidence level that went with that. We then would put together our observations, from that, the findings, and finally the recommendations that we were presenting to both your staff and council. So we started out with a sample review of a documentation survey that we've designed and used in several other instances in municipalities. We looked to meet with the community, or touch the community, touch council, as well as touch staff and get their feedback. The survey marketing was done through Canada Post. There was mailers sent to residents, businesses, and farms. There was a Facebook and Google advertising campaign, as well as Thames Center social media. The feedback on the preliminary findings we brought back last week to a council workshop, and there was 2 poster open houses. Actually, there was one last week, and there's one coming up this week, I believe Thursday. Yes, Thursday. And from there, there'll be a final report. All right, it's Thursday. Is it Wednesday? Is it Wednesday? I better get that right myself.
Wednesday at the Thorndale Lions Community Center between 5 and 8 p.m. for the public.
And from that, we will then finalize our report. We'll send the report to staff, and then they will use that information to present to council for their meeting. So when asked, because it was an online survey, it was anonymous. And if there were participants that had identified being outside of the municipality, then the survey was rejected. And in that case, we did have 4 instances. There was a QR code that was permitted for the survey, and it could only be used once. The IP codes that came in were filtered. There was a couple of IP addresses that fell outside the municipality. In fact, there was 3 of them on that. There was no abusive language or any abusive comments that were needed to be taken or removed from the report. The completion rate was approximately 85%, meaning whoever started the survey actually completed it. And that was, as I say, 85%. Roughly took about 10 minutes to complete, and we had a pretty high score, being at the 95% confidence level with the results. This is the breakdown of where the respondents came from. 86% were residents, 1% business owners. A combination of resident and business owners represented just under 12%. And you'll see that 85% of the respondents were from the Dorchester-Thorndale area, and the other 15% made up all the remaining hamlets and smaller communities. So when we put the report together, we looked at different adjectives that people were using with respect to how they felt with the municipality, the priorities and the services that are being provided. And what we did is we highlighted the adjectives based on the number of times that they showed up in the different reports. So you'll see that good, great, and excellent certainly are at the top of the list. Expensive did find its way up there as well. Can't have it all good. There has to be some on the negative side, but that means that we're doing something right. So, but did 76% overall was a positive adjective, and there was approximately 18% that came back with not so much of a positive, but a little bit more negative. And that's not really outrageous. That's pretty consistent, I think, what you'd see in most instances, most municipalities. So what the survey did was provide an opportunity for participants to comment on the features of living and doing business in Thames Centre. And the top 5 comments that are themes that were highlighted was small town community feel, sense of community, quiet nature, and the proximity of living close to big cities such as London, and the green space, not a city. So you can see there's a trending theme that strings through those comments. And after speaking with council last week, tend to have gotten some similar consistencies with some of the comments, living close to the city, having a progressive and cosmopolitan community, but maintaining that small town feel. So in our findings, with respect to the housing and growth, the question was asked, how they felt with respect to the growth rate. And not surprising, 53% indicated that the growth rate was too high. 34% indicated that they either liked or thought it should be higher. And there was about 13% that either had no opinion to offer, or weren't maybe satisfied. Again, that's not inconsistent with what we're seeing or hearing across other areas of the province. The breakdown of the type of housing, you'll see there's, people are comfortable with the single detached, comfortable with the semi-detached. You start to get into the apartments, the higher level apartments certainly become a little less appealing to the public. Mobile homes and others tend to just categorize in certainly the small homes or something that is heavier density. Those typically will garner a little bit more of a negative response than a positive, just because people recognize and realize that we need to have more affordable housing or more low cost housing, but how do we do that without it affecting the neighborhood and in the backyard that many people live in? The findings with respect to the municipal services and its priorities. This was a bit of an interesting chart in that we took all the services that are being provided. We asked them to gauge where they felt there were in terms of priority. You'll see that cemeteries is not one that is high on the priority list. We discussed that with council and thought that somewhat was a bit odd, but it also is a reflection that the municipality is really not in the cemetery business in this particular area. Bylaw services is another one that scored relatively low in terms of priority, which seemed a bit odd again, because bylaw is something that a lot of people tend to notice, when they're trying to get to their Tim Hortons or a cup of coffee without having to park in a non-stopping or non-parking area. So the other features, fire services and police services scored high as essential and high in importance, and that goes without saying. I think that's consistent again everywhere. Garbage collection and water services, sorry, not water services, but the roads. Again, those are number one that comes to mind with most people is, the quality of the roads. And you mentioned, your worship, just not too long ago about fixing a railway track, which was probably an irritant for people. And that's what you do hear about or tend to hear. So the potholes always get the attention. On the performance side, what we were able to see is that recreation not surprising, is high on the performance side and expectation. Again, the fire services, the roads, I think scoring 51% at average is again pretty consistent. The waste collection, again, scoring high in the average sort of category. The low ones, police services, again, I think that's a reflection of what we're seeing happening across the province, and that policing is something that's changed dramatically over the last 20 years. That we just don't get that visibility. You don't get that boots on the ground types of policing that we're all grown up with, or at least those that are in our older years, that where we saw that, police officers would be in the local businesses and coffee shops on a regular basis, talking and meeting with the public. The council information, 22 to 23% below expectation. We talked a bit about that. I would flip that and look at 58 to 59% scoring average. And I think the challenge that we have in the public realm is educating our constituents, getting them to truly understand what it is that council does. And unfortunately, we spoke about this with council. It starts in our school system, and doing a better job of making sure that children growing up and families growing up do have a better understanding of what the services that the local municipality can provide. And then on top of that, which are the ones that they have some input on? Because talking about police or fire, I mean, it's so regulated and legislated. There's not a lot of options for a municipality to change or adjust to provide that higher level of service that people would expect. The waste collection, I think it's pretty consistent again with where it sits. There's 25% being above expectation is a pretty good score, and that means 1 in 4 are pretty satisfied with the current garbage collection contract. So from the priorities and the performances, we came with 4 strategic priorities or pillars: smart planning, community communication engagement, economic development, and active living. And under the 4, we've put together some recommendations. Under smart planning, there's an opportunity, and again, I want to highlight, these are not directions of staff or directions of council or any specific direction that must be taken. These are really simple recommendations for those involved to have a look and possibly come back with, this may fit, this may not fit, but it's just something I think they open yourselves up to the idea of, what are we doing and what could we possibly be doing more efficiently or better. So one of the options is to look at possibly creating a 2-step process for your planning applications, and bringing those planning applications down here at the local level, so that it's all decided here, not so much going up to the upper tier, and gives you a little bit more control, but also a chance to sort of have that sober second thought, maybe when you're approving an application, and it allows you another week to look at the final approval in a council meeting. The Thames Centre Council should also consider creating standing committee of council and have a planning and development committee where all your planning matters are discussed, rather than having it all in one encompassing meeting as you're having this evening. When approving new subdivisions, council should adopt policies that promote greater diversity in housing stock, such as increased number of apartments, townhouses, semi-detached homes for younger families and seniors. Again, it's, the challenging of being able to balance, the constituents that want to move here and the constituents that are already living here. And that's always a tough act for council to measure. When approving site plans, council should adopt policies to try to promote and capture the small town features, such as your street light poles, your lighting, sidewalks, building facades, parks and trails, ensuring that, the integrity of what you've already established that's great about Thames Center is maintained in these new subdivisions and developments. And the municipality should partner with the County of Middlesex to develop a transportation master plan specific to the Thames Center community, which I understand has already started and is one that's on its way. As well as community or improvement plan. I understand that there's a process that's already been put in place to be looking at that. And looking, I guess, forward to seeing what the Stantec report will look like. But the community improvement plan certainly is something that will help, I think, with some of your local businesses. We talked a bit about the agricultural opportunities that exist on the side of the roads with farm fresh to home or to table for different services and food. Under community communication engagement, it's possible that the councillors could look at conducting annual town hall meetings with respect to updating their constituents, council decisions with respect to budgets, policies. It's also an opportunity, a touch opportunity to get feedback from them as far as what's happening specifically in the wards, as well as on a higher or larger scale, the municipal issues. The mayor and the deputy mayor could attend the ward annual town hall meetings, as well as possibly holding their own type of meetings, including having different guests, whether it's your fire chief or the chief of police attending some of the meetings, having them or allowing them the opportunity to update the public on certain legislation, certain governing documents that require them to follow and maintain. The mayor could conduct a state of municipality function, some sort of an address focused on the business community, whether it's a mayor's breakfast, reinvigorating what I understand the Chamber of Commerce that doesn't exist at this point, trying to possibly maybe work with a local group of businesses to maybe resurrect that type of idea and work with whether it's a chamber or another volunteer group to establish a path between the community, the business community, as well as council. Oh, is it? Oh, I'm sorry. This thing? Oh. Okay. Sorry. I'm struggling talking this way and looking that way, but that's okay. And of course I'm farsighted, so I can't see, I can see that better than I can see this. So or I guess that'd be nearsighted. So the live stream of council meetings can be improved by implementing a couple of different cameras, different views, to be able to give the public that can't be here today the perspective of what's happening here in the chambers, not just what the one particular view that they have. With respect to community communication engagements and the council feedback, we did make a couple of revisions, town hall meetings within there to add some green agenda items. There was a number of discussions that came around to talk a bit about the opportunity of bringing green into the services and different processes that you apply. As I said, the mayor's annual business breakfast event, and whether we, incorporate that into some sort of awards type function where you're recognizing, the efforts and the qualities of some of the great businesses that you have here. Excuse me. We said best winery, but I think we were picking on somebody at that time. The recommendation with respect to municipal sponsorship, grants and in-kind of support, the community groups, and funding to celebrate the arts and culture, which is a growing and good opportunity in this area, as well as I said earlier, about providing some potential funding or partnership in developing or trying to bring back the Thames Center Chamber of Commerce. With respect to active living, as recommended with the Community Services Facilities Master Plan, the plan should be reviewed on an annual basis as part of its municipality's budget cycle. And the community feedback received in the strategic plan process, the recommendations received, Community Services and Facilities Master Plans should be prioritized towards the youth and seniors. And we did talk about potentially recognizing this again. Still doing it though. Yeah, so then we talked about potentially looking at a youth or seniors type ad hoc type committee to potentially work with council and providing different feedback and different ideas as we move along. And the municipality should or can consider developing and implementing a parks trails master plan based on growing communities and needs and expectations. And again, I understand that that's in place. Working with the new growth and new developments and making sure that whatever site plans get approved, that they incorporate some of the existing trails, provide connectivity from one part of the community to another so that you're not blocking off certain subdivisions as they get approved and incorporated as part of the municipality. And the recommendations with respect to active living, and after bringing in council feedback, it was focusing on the walking trails. Thorndale was a priority. Trail maintenance and volunteerism and municipal support. Again, the annual report on trails, citizen engagement, and community support promotion. The one recommendation that came in new was the playroom in the youth center in Dorchester and Thorndale, and its importance and place in the community. On economic development, the municipality could consider financial incentives to retain and attract local businesses into the local community for greater accessibility of stores to seniors. I say this, I guess, lightly in the sense that want to be careful when you go down that path in terms of, you know, what kinds of incentives you do want to provide or do provide, knowing that, you know, if you're providing incentives to one category or group or class of business or industry, you're taking away from another, in the sense that the cost of implementing services doesn't go away. And so if you're providing some financial incentive, you're doing it at the behest of one to benefit the other. And sometimes there's a business case that makes sense, and that requires, again, some work with council and work with staff to ensure that this is the right path and right decision to make. But it is an option and a tool available to council. We partner with the County of Middlesex to create an economic development strategy that focuses on Thames Center, supporting the retention, the attraction of local business. And this could involve leveraging Middlesex County and allocating dedicated resources to Thames Center. Work with the local farmers. You want to take that? That sounds better. Sorry about that. Yeah, so working with the local farmers and looking at harvest to local residents, food to table programs, sponsored farmers markets, fall fair by local campaigns, looking at reducing the red tape or pulling some of the cookie cutter planning options that prevent certain opportunities to have a tent or even the back of a pickup truck at the end of a farm to be able to sell local produce or different opportunities. Those are all great ideas, I think, in trying to help and promote your local farming community. The municipality can consider looking at display signage, greeting the drivers. You have the asset of the 401 running through here, taking advantage of, or doubling down with what Middlesex has done, but taking advantage of, some signage and some branding that puts Thames Center, in the eyes and minds of people driving through that busy section. So, and development of a tourism plan that focuses on primarily the two specialized sectors, which we talked about with council, agriculture being one of them, and sport being a very important and strong part of what happens in the Thames Center. So Again, after council's feedback, we were able to look at focusing on walking trails. Again, Thorndale being a priority, trail maintenance, trying to look at possibly bringing in some volunteers, some municipal support, making sure that there's an annual report on trails, and again, focusing on citizen engagement, community support, and promotion. And just the same slide that we already, I must have went backwards. Wait. I feel like I've been going, I went the other way there from that. Smart planning. Oh, that arrow was going that way. Okay. No, I've gone too far. Yeah, okay. There we go. Yeah, so out of the comments from council, establishing an agricultural advisory committee, which I think is something that would be very valuable to council. Just in time, speaking of the ag committee. Hi. Yeah. Nice. So promotion of the Middlesex London Food Policy Council on municipality social media platforms, regular updates and presentations quarterly from the Economic Development to Thames Centre's Municipal Council. Together we can grow, or together we grow signage, display logos, and looking at potential funding that can come from the province as well on that. On municipal services, the county should develop a risk profile and master fire plan as required in the provincial legislation. This will provide the fire chief and council with information when determining the level of effort in regards to fire and emergency services. The municipality should also develop a updated water and wastewater master plan to address future needs planning initiatives. And the municipality should also explore uploading the potential of water and wastewater services to the upper tier municipality, such as the delivery model, which is operating in their nearby Oxford County. And I know that not everybody is necessarily excited with that, and that might not be the best example, but the opportunity, and I think it would be to your benefit to explore whether you go down the path. The numbers will always shake itself out and it'll either make sense or it won't make sense. But the opportunities with water and wastewater really come by increasing the numbers of the users on the system, because as we all know, it's a user pay system, and the more people on it, the cheaper the rates are. So the only way to get that is to get the economies and bring in others, or grow, which you can only grow at such a reasonable pace. So you to get those numbers into a position where they're a little bit more affordable, you have to look at potential partnerships. And as I say, it may not be to your benefit, but I think without exploring it, you'll not know. So it's something that staff should be able to come back with a report to suggest this makes sense or not. The municipality could also address the constraints and opportunities involving bylaw enforcement, which looks at use a divisional review of all bylaws, policies, and standard operating procedures, and just making sure that I think on a regular basis you're sort of looking at the bylaws and making sure that they do meet sort of the expectations of the public and what the constituents are looking for. The municipality should initiate a performance measurement project, which would establish your key performance indicators, KPIs, for all your municipal services to determine what your baseline performance looks like. And the KPIs then become a public reported document, and it's utilized during your annual budget meeting. And it's helpful for users, councils, the board of directors, just to be able to measure the positive and successes that come along with your staff and how the services are coming through and being delivered. Other recommendations that came out was the advisory, as I say, in ad hoc committees to send annual reports to council with priority projects, program services to keep everyone in the loop. Highlighting the sporting events such as hockey and baseball tournaments, highlight arts and culture such as the fiddle and dance, the Dorchester Fair, success and opportunities, what could be employed to fit within the tourism master plan. The promotion of farmers stands that we spoke about, and as well as promotion of local business through the CIP. Partner with London Health Sciences on promoting greater medical services in Thames Centre, such as family health teams, family doctor recruitment, etc. That was a conversation that we had quite extensively with respect to, the lack, I guess, if there is or shortage of doctors that we're seeing across, not just here, but everywhere. And what can't the council do to start to promote and possibly help bring that service to a higher level for the people that live in the area. Consider as I say, the mayor's or council's youth committees, partner with London Transit Commission with respect to our investigating on the demand the public transit programs have, and are they meeting those demands, and are they being delivered in an efficient manner? So next steps is today, obviously, is council presentation, October 26th. Last week was our open house in Dorchester, and Wednesday's Thorndale. We will then pull back all that information. We will bring back the feedback and recommendations through to staff. There'll be a final report that's at the November 14th council meeting. At this stage, I won't be here physically, but if required, I can be here virtually, and we'll see. It depends. I guess we'll see what comes out and if there's any more questions that are required at that time. And that is the end of my presentation. If there's any questions, if there's anything I missed, that I can take some notes now, or you can certainly send me some other information if we haven't hit it all today. Otherwise, I will be again, as I say, Wednesday in Thorndale. If any of council's there, we'll see us at that point.
Thanks very much, Ken. That's very complete. Good picture going forward. Nice to know what the community is thinking. At this point, are there any questions that council has? Otherwise, then we will move that the strategic plan be developing strategic priorities for municipal council as presented by Ken Hewitt of Ken Hewitt Consulting be received for information. A mover, Councillor Heeman, a seconder, Councillor Crockett. All in favor? That motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll see you Wednesday. You got me thinking Thursday. Okay, we'll move on to item number 6 on your agenda, reports of departments. 6.1 from the Flight Exec Center Donor and Sponsor Recognition Program, and we'll turn that over to Steve McDonald. Thank you.
Before you report, thank you, Mark. You have before you report FCEAC 003-23 regarding the Donor and Sponsor Recognition Program for the Flight Exec Center renovation project. At the Expansion Committee meeting held earlier this month, the committee agreed upon the program that is being recommended within this report. The proposed donor recognition program mimics the one used when the Thorndale Lions Community Center was built, with just 2 notable differences. Firstly, an additional level was added between 1,000 and 10,000 donations, as the committee felt this was a large jump, so adding the $5,000 level would fill that gap. Secondly, instead of selling 2 sizes of engravable paver stones for $250 and $500 for smaller donation recognition, as was done in Thorndale for in front of the community center, this project will instead offer the opportunity for 2 sizes of donor recognition that would be placed on the cinder block walls within the main hallway running through the senior center and towards the new auditorium for the same 2 denominations. Next up in the report are the proposed dollar amounts for naming rights for the various rooms in the project, as detailed in the attachment. Again, rates were made to match those used for the Thorndale Lions Community Center where comparable, with any spaces unique for this project, specifically a lot of the VON rooms, had those rates set in comparison based on factors such as the amount of visibility such spaces will have to the public, along with what spaces within the VON area will have a greater interest and value in naming rights. With the approval of this program, the fundraising subcommittee looks forward to launching the full campaign well in advance of the holiday season, as this program offers great opportunities for that special someone in your family that seemingly has everything. I'm happy to answer any questions that council may have at this time.
Thanks, Mr. McDonald. Any questions from council in this matter? Okay. All right, then. I'll be looking for a mover and a second. Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry, Tom, I missed you. Go ahead.
Through your worship to Director McDonald, I'm just wondering how the fundraising goal was established. What was the methodology?
Sorry, which goal, like the prices that were set, or? The total goal, we looked at how much could be brought in if all of the room sponsorships were sold, along with the track record of how the Thorndale project was completed.
And just a comment, it is a much bigger and more expensive project, but it's also important to keep in mind that we did have the $1 million estate donation. So this does keep it within the 25% public fundraising guidelines that we have talked about in the past.
No other questions from council then? All right, a mover and a seconder that report number FCEAC-003-23 be received for information, and that council approves the proposed donor and sponsor recognition program for the Flight Exec Center expansion project as outlined in the report. Moved by Deputy Mayor Smybert and seconded by Councillor Heeman. All in favor? That motion carries. Thank you very much. Okay. Moving on to the public meeting concerning drainage. A meeting to consider the Opton Calder drain. Mike, you want to go ahead?
Good evening. This report was prepared in accordance with Section 4 of the Drainage Act for a new municipal drain. There was a petition submitted by several landowners to serve lots 4 and 5 in concessions 2 and 3 SRT in South or North Dorchester. Presently there is some private tiling and a fair amount of surface flow, but no municipal drains to serve those properties. They requested that we investigated a few alternatives. The water actually leaves these properties in a few different locations, not just one. And there was different ways of trying to tackle that, because there is Mossley Drive and Putnam Road that the water has to cross, and crossing roads can get fairly expensive on their own, rather and also getting to these particular parts of the properties that were being petitioned for. After reviewing the alternatives, the owners requested that we construct one new outlet from the Reynolds Creek drain, which is on the east side of Putnam, upstream crossing Putnam Road and then running parallel to Putnam Road on the west side and picking up areas where water's coming from the west, as well as some of the landowners will have to bring water southerly away from Mossley Drive down to this drain privately. We could have extended the municipal drain further upstream, but they decided to do that drainage privately on their own. But we have included areas that aren't naturally tributary to here so that could happen. We are recommending catch basins be installed in several places along the drain to try and capture some surface water during smaller rain events. In large rain events, there will still be excess water, and the west road ditch on Putnam Road is quite large, and there is a lot of water that goes down there, but we will be able to accommodate some of that during the smaller rain events. The pipe sizes range from 18 inches to 24 inches in diameter to serve the watershed. And I would stop and open up to questions.
Thanks, Mr. DeVos. Are the affected landowners in the room, and would they like to ask any questions regarding the details? No? Okay. Is there anyone who would like to add or remove their name from the petition? No? Okay. Any questions from members of council regarding this drain? Well then, it's a fairly long motion. Do I have a mover for the recommendation as it appears on the agenda? Noting that item number 3, it has to be 3 members of council who will sit on this committee, the Court of Revision. Councillor Heeman? And anyone else interested? Deputy Mayor Smybert? Councillor Crockett, any interest? Okay. All right, then. So we have our 3. So then the motion then before us is on your agenda. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Oh, I'm sorry. And we have to designate the chair. Deputy Mayor Smybert willing to be the chair? Okay. All right, then. Thanks for the reminder. Okay. A mover and a seconder then. Moved by Councillor Heeman and seconded by Councillor Crockett. All in favor? Okay, motion carries. Thank you. Thanks, Mike, very much.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night. All right, we'll move on to the item number 8, planning portion of the meeting. Good night. So that I need a mover and a seconder for council to adjourn its regular meeting at 5:47 p.m. and move into public meetings pursuant to the Planning Act to consider applications listed on the October 30th, 2023 council agenda, moved by Councillor Heeman and seconded by Deputy Mayor Smybert. All in favor? Okay. Motion carried. All right. We'll move on to 8.1, consent application B18-23, Paul Andrew Shackleton as the applicant. Paul Randawa, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, Randawa, agent, 1263 Harrietsville Drive and 5824 Dorchester Road. Overview of the application by Planning and Development, Mr. Bancroft.
Thank you, Your Worship. So this is an application for consent to convey a parcel of land to facilitate the severance of an existing farm, generally into 2 equal halves. The subject property, it's a 200-acre farm or 81 hectares, and it's located on the south side of Harrietsville Drive, on the north side of Avon Drive, and on the east side of Dorchester Road. The north half of the farm contains a single detached dwelling, known municipally as 1263 Harrietsville Drive, and several farm buildings. The south half of the farm, on the other hand, it also contains a single detached dwelling, known municipally as 5824 Dorchester Road. This application is being requested to allow the sale of the south half of the farm, which cannot occur without a consent granted under the Planning Act. Due to the north and south halves of the farm being in common ownership, these lands merged to become a single parcel of land back in 2017. The lands to be severed, they would have an area of approximately 41 hectares. And again, that would be the south half of the farm. The north half of the farm, which is the lands to be retained, they would have an area of 40 hectares. These lands are designated agricultural under the official plan and zoned for farming purposes, except for a wooded area located in the southeast quadrant of the farm, which is designated protection area and also zone environmental protection, or EP. I've conducted my analysis, Your Worship, as outlined in my planning report. And the planning framework does permit lot creation in agricultural areas for farming purposes, provided that farm lots are of a sufficient size, that they're sufficiently large enough to maintain productive and viable farm units. Furthermore, both the county and the Thames Centre official plan discourage the fragmentation of farmland. However, new farm lots need to be at least 40 hectares in size. So based on this particular proposal, that policy direction would not be compromised. Given the size of the lands to be severed and the lands to be retained would equal or exceed 40 hectares. And also the proposed lots are capable of complying with the lot area and lot frontage requirements under the zoning bylaw. So for those reasons, I'm satisfied that this application is consistent with the provincial policy statement and in conformity with the county and Thames Centre official plans. In terms of agency comments, we have no issues that were identified in the circulation of this proposal from agencies. We either have no comment or no objection. And that also includes an internal circulation to various departments and municipal officials. Also, in terms of public comments, no responses have been received from the public to date. So it's my recommendation, Your Worship, that this application for consent be 18-23, that it be approved, subject to the 5 conditions noted in my report, and also based on the reasons outlined in my report. If there's any questions, I'm here to answer those. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Bancroft. Is the applicant or the agent in the room and wishing to speak to the issue?
Your Worship, I'm just moving him over.
Okay.
Good evening. I'm agent for the
I believe you're on mute.
Am I? Is that any better or?
Yeah, no, that's great. Thanks. Go ahead when you're ready, Paul.
Yep. I'm agent for the applicant, Paul Rendawa. I'm just here for any questions that any of you might have.
All right, thank you. So in terms of questions, then, is there anyone here in person wishing to ask any questions or anyone online? Okay. In that particular case, then, are there any questions from the members of council on this particular application? Okay, seeing none, we'll move to close the, or rather we are closing the public meeting, and council can make their decisions on the application. There's a recommendation before us from Mr. Bancroft, including 5 conditions as included on the agenda. And do I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Heeman, seconded by Deputy Mayor Smybert. All in favor? Okay, that passes. Thank you. Thanks very much. It looks like it was an easy chore tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, move on to item number 8.2, consent applications B19-23 and B20-23 Civic Planning Solutions, Inc., care of David Rowe, agent, for the property at 4386 West Chesterbourne and 4404 West Chesterbourne. Mr. Bancroft, if you'd like to go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. So the subject applications have been made to formally recognize an existing shared driveway by establishing right-of-way easements in favor of abutting properties. So we've got the property situated at 4386 West Chesterbourne. These are the lands to the north. And these lands are subject to application B19-23. It's a 1 hectare parcel. and it's on the east side of Westchester Bourne, just north of Dingman Drive. These lands contain a single detached dwelling along with a custom shop. And these lands have access to Westchester Bourne through a shared driveway with the property to the south. So these particular lands are designated agricultural and zoned site-specific A-16, which permits those existing land uses. Then we have the lands to the south, known municipally as 4404 Westchester Bourne. These lands are subject to consent application B 20-23. It's a 0.6 hectare parcel. These lands also contain a single detached dwelling along with a repair shop. Access to this property is permitted to Westchester Bourne through the same shared driveway shared with the property to the north, as well as there's a standalone second driveway providing access for the single detached dwelling. These lands are designated agricultural and they're zoned site-specific A-30, which permits those existing land uses. So, Your Worship, both property owners are seeking consent approvals to formally recognize that shared driveway. The shared driveway dimensions in terms of width and area, those are all laid out in my report. I've conducted my analysis, Your Worship, and the policy framework does generally permit consents for legal or technical reasons, including easements. And more specifically, under the Thames Centre official plan, it permits right-of-way easements to facilitate access, provided that the consent would not result in the creation of a new building lot. So that certainly would not be compromised. Again, given that the proposed right-of-way easements are being sought to formally recognize this shared driveway between abutting properties. So in all, I'm satisfied that this proposal meets the planning framework. With respect to the circulation of the proposal to agencies, we have no comment or no objection expressed, with the exception from the county engineer. He is requesting that the owners of each property be required to dedicate lands up to 18 meters from the center line of construction of County Road 74 across the frontage of the lands to be conveyed and the lands to be retained to Middlesex County for road widening purposes if the right-of-way is not already to that width. Also, Your Worship, in terms of the circulation to surrounding property owners, to date, no responses have been received from the public. So it's my recommendation, Your Worship, that application for consent B19-23 be approved, subject to the 4 conditions noted in my report, for the reasons outlined in my report. And then secondly, that application for consent B20-23 be approved, subject to the 4 conditions noted in my report, and also based on the reasons outlined in my report. I'm here to answer any questions, Your Worship. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Bancroft. So any additional information from either the applicant or the agent?
Good evening. David Rowe. Good evening. My name is David Rowe. I'm the agent for the 2 applications. Basically, your planner covered everything off in his presentation. It is, from what I can gather, somewhat of a housekeeping exercise to create a shared driveway. It's not unusual if both properties were developed at separate times not to have such a creation done at that time, but this certainly is a good housekeeping method to ensure proper adequate access to the 2 commercially used properties. So from that perspective, it certainly is good planning. I reviewed the conditions suggested and recommended by the planner. They are certainly within proper conditions to apply to this type of severance. So all in all, I'd like to again commend your staff and your planning staff in particular for their assistance with these two applications. Thank you.
Good, thanks very much. Then going over to the public, are there any people either in chambers or online who wish to speak to this particular application? No, there are no. Any questions from council then? Councillor Heeman.
I'm just curious, through your worship, to Director Bancroft, what the impact of the 18-meter setback would be on the proposed easements.
Through your worship, I would anticipate that there would be some property lost in the front of both of these lands affected. These are pretty standard conditions, your worship, at the same time, through you, in that this is an opportunity for the road authority to request a widening dedication. It's in the public interest, considering if these aren't dealt with through this mechanism, then it can be quite costly in terms of any necessary expropriation that could result.
A follow-up.
I understand the necessity. It just seems like there, if you put the road setback another 18 meters, then there's it's not necessary to have the separation. You go that far back, then there's already a fork. But just an observation. No comment required.
Okay. Anyone else from council then? All right. Seeing none then, if there's no further discussion, the public meeting is now closed and council can make their decisions on the applications. So there are two separate consent decisions required from council. There's a recommendation for approval of consent application B19-23, including 4 conditions as included on the agenda. Do I have a mover for that? Deputy Mayor Smybert, and seconded by Councillor Crockett. All in favor? That carries. And the second part is for approval of consent application B20-23, including 4 conditions as included on the agenda. And then do I have a mover and a seconder for this one? Councillor Crockett, and seconded by Deputy Mayor Smybert. All in favor? That carries. Thank you very much. Thanks very much, Mr. Earl. All right, we will move on to item 8.3 on your agenda, consent application B17-23 and zoning bylaw amendment application Z27-23, Ron and Charles Pickle Farms, applicant Scott Lobb and Carrie Mills as the agent, and the property is 23976 Heritage Road. We'll move to Alana for the overview. Thanks.
Thank you, Your Worship. Good evening. My name is Alana Cortez, and I'm a planner with the County of Middlesex, and I provide planning advisory services to Thames Center. So the purpose of the consent application is to facilitate the disposal of a dwelling surplus to a farming operation as a result of farm consolidation. The purpose of the rezoning application is to rezone the balance of the farm to prohibit any new residential use consistent with provincial policy. So the subject property is a 102-acre farm located on the east side of Heritage Road, north of Gregory Drive, and is used primarily for the cultivation of field crops. The farm contains a single detached dwelling, 2 garden sheds, and a shop. The dwelling is serviced by private well and septic system. The lands are designated agricultural and zoned agricultural. The lands to be severed would have a frontage of approximately 88 meters along Heritage Road and an area of approximately 2.3 acres, and would contain the single detached dwelling, sheds, and shop. The lands to be retained would have an area of approximately 105 acres, 100.5 acres. Planning staff have conducted our analysis as noted in the report. The provincial policy statement, the County of Middlesex official plan, and Thames Center official plan generally permit lot creation in agricultural areas for a dwelling surplus to a farming operation as a result of farm consolidation, provided that criteria has been satisfied. As noted in the planning report, staff are satisfied that the criteria has been generally met. Any issues regarding the location of septic system and potable well can be addressed through conditions of consent. To prohibit any future residential use of the lands, a site-specific agricultural A-45 zone is being requested for the lands to be retained. Planning staff are satisfied that the subject applications are consistent with the provincial policy statement and in conformity with both the county and Thames Centre official plans. In regards to agency comments received during the circulation of the subject applications, the chief building official advised that the applicant shall provide a surveyor's real property report, which includes a location of the on-site sewage system, leaching bed, and confirms that the leaching bed is wholly contained on the lands to be severed and meet the setback requirements of the Ontario Building Code. Enbridge advised that there are service lines running within the area which may or may not be affected by the proposed severance. Any service relocation required due to the severance would be at the cost of the property owner. No public comments have been received to date. So it is planning staff's recommendation that consent application B17-23 be approved subject to the 7 conditions noted in the report for the reasons outlined in the report. And also that zoning bylaw amendment application Z27-23 be approved in principle and that staff be directed to prepare the necessary zoning bylaw amendment for council's consideration at the next regular meeting. Thank you. I'm here to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Cortez. So is the agent or the applicant in the room? Would you like to come forward to speak to the issue? If you just for the record, state your name and your municipal address and push the center button. There.
I'm Carrie Mills.
We're from Scott Law.
Okay, go ahead whenever you're ready. Is
No,
anybody?
thank you. We understand the 7 conditions and we have no issue with those.
Okay, all right, that's great then. Okay, thanks very much. So any questions from the public, either in person or online? None at all? Okay. Then any questions from members of council? All righty. Then if there's no further discussion, then the public meeting is now closed and council can make their decisions on the applications. There are 2 again.
I'd like to move the resolution.
Okay. All right. So you're moving the first of it then? There are two decisions, consent and the later one is.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So moved by Councillor Heeman and seconded by Deputy Mayor Smybert. So all in favor? Okay. Motion carries. And the second part is there's a recommendation for approval of zoning bylaw amendment Z27-23. And do I have a mover for this one? Again, Mr. Heeman and seconded by Deputy Mayor Smybert. All in favor? And that motion carries as well. The next one on the agenda is item 8.4, a zoning bylaw amendment application Z25-23, Mark Benoit and Jennifer Benoit as the applicant. And the property is at 6207 Trafalgar Street. Mr. Bancroft, you're taking this one?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. So this is an application to rezone a portion of the property to a site-specific agricultural zone to permit an additional residential unit or ARU, and to also allow it to be placed in the front yard. The subject property, it's a 40-acre farm located on the south side of Trafalgar Street and east of Elgin Road. Although the lands are currently vacant, there is a single detached dwelling that's currently under construction, and the lands are to be privately serviced by a well and septic system. The lands have historically been used for field crop cultivation within the front portion, whereas the balance and majority of the farm contains natural heritage features, including wetlands and wooded areas. So with that being said, the subject lands are designated agricultural, natural area, and protection area under the Thames Centre official plan, and accordingly zoned agricultural, environmental protection, and wetland. Also, most of the property is regulated by the Conservation Authority. What has precipitated this application is the applicant is proposing to construct an additional residential unit or ARU to accommodate a family member, having a floor area of 74 square meters and clustered within 30 meters of the building envelope to support the single detached dwelling. The ARU would be located in the front yard and set back approximately 72 meters from the road, compared to the setback for the proposed dwelling. It'd be further back, approximately 113 meters from the road. I've conducted my analysis, Your Worship, as outlined in my report, and the provincial policy statement encourages an appropriate range and mix of housing types, including ARUs, to meet long-term needs of the community. That's also echoed somewhat under the County of Middlesex official plan, which encourages a broad range of housing types. And also under the Thames Centre official plan, it does include policy direction in allowing the addition of ARUs, including in agricultural areas, provided that they're capable of being appropriately serviced. They are clearly secondary to the primary dwelling, and compliance with the Ontario Building Code is capable of being achieved. So all of those matters are capable of being addressed through the issuance of the building permit and through zoning regulations to limit the size of the ARU. Under the zoning bylaw, a building or structure accessory to a single detached dwelling is not permitted within the front yard. The intent of this requirement is to ensure the dwelling remains the main residential use on the property and the dominant feature from the street. Staff has no concerns with the proposed placement of the ARU, considering it would be significantly set back from the street or the road, and also it would be within 30 meters clustered in proximity to the dwelling. Furthermore, under the Thames Centre official plan, it includes evaluation criteria for zoning bylaw amendments. And I'm satisfied, Your Worship, that criteria has been met, or it's capable of being met through the issuance of the building permit. I should also add that the last criterion speaks to assurances that there are no adverse effects that the proposed use may have on adjacent uses or on natural heritage features. It's important to note that the proposed ARU would be situated approximately 82 meters from a provincially significant wetland, which is the Dorchester Swamp. Furthermore, according to provincial policy and the Thames Centre official plan, an environmental impact study, or EIS, is to be undertaken should development be proposed within 120 meters of a wetland feature. And development is defined as a change in land use or the construction of a building or structure that requires a Planning Act approval. In this case, Your Worship, it is my opinion that an EIS or environmental impact study should not be required to allow the proposed ARU, since the lands that are subject to the development are already pre-zoned agricultural. So what that basically means is permission is currently in place to allow the construction of any building or structure in accordance with the uses permitted under the agricultural zone, regardless of the adjacent wetland feature. The intent of provincial policy and our official plan are maintained considering there's no change in land use per se, but rather the addition of a qualifier to the permitted uses to allow the proposed ARU. Also, it does not seem logical to require an EIS for the proposed ARU when the dwelling under construction is actually closer to the wetland feature. In terms of agency comments, Your Worship, we have no concerns or objections that were identified. Our chief building official notes that the applicant be advised that building permits are required for the proposed ARU and on-site sewage disposal prior to proceeding with any work. Also, Your Worship, to date, no responses have been received from the public. And so it's my recommendation that this application for zoning bylaw amendment Z25-23 be approved in principle, and that I be directed to bring forward the implementing bylaw for council's consideration at the next regular meeting. I'm here to answer any questions, Your Worship. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Bancroft. Any additional information from the applicant or the planning or the agent? None at all? Okay. And any questions from the public, either in person or virtual? No, none? Okay. Any questions from members of council? No? Okie dokie. There being no further discussion, the public meeting is now closed and council can make their decision on the application. There's a recommendation for approval of zoning bylaw amendment Z2523. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Crockett and seconded by Councillor Heeman. All in favor? Okay, carries. Thank you. Next item on the agenda, 8.5, zoning bylaw amendment application Z26-23, One School Global, care of Bob Mooney, applicant, Stuart Finlater as the agent. Property address is 4189 Mossley Road. An overview of the application then, Mr. Bancroft.
Thank you, Your Worship. So this application seeks to rezone the subject property to permit a retail store not open to the general public to the existing zoning of the property. The subject property, it's a 3-hectare site located on the south side of Mossley Drive and on the west side of Putnam Road, displayed on the location map. So operating since 2008, the property contains a private school in the form of a main building, a portable, and a workshop. These lands are also privately serviced with a well and a septic system. These lands are designated agricultural under the Thames Center official plan, and they're zoned site-specific institutional I-4, which permits a private school. The applicant has applied for this approval to permit a retail store not open to the general public as an additional permitted use, which is otherwise not permitted. A 200 square meter self-serve retail store has been established within the school, which has a function of being exclusive for enrolled families to raise funds for the operation of the school. The retail store is a unique feature in that it is not open to the public. It has no employees and requires direct key fob from outside, as there's no direct access to the school from the retail store. I've conducted my analysis, Your Worship, and these lands are situated in a prime agricultural area. And under the provincial policy statement, planning authorities may only permit non-farm uses in prime ag areas for limited non-residential uses, provided the evaluation criteria has been met. And for the reasons outlined in my report, Your Worship, I'm satisfied that the criteria has been satisfied. Furthermore, under the County of Middlesex official plan, it does not prevent the continuation, expansion, or enlargement of uses which don't conform to the designations and provisions of the county plan. Local municipalities may zone to permit the continuation, expansion, or enlargement of legally existing uses, provided that there's no adverse impact on neighboring lands and conformity with minimum distance separation is achieved. So in all, Your Worship, I am satisfied that the proposed use would not offend the county plan. Although there are existing livestock operations in the area, They are already impacted by the institutional zoning that currently applies to the property. Therefore, compliance with minimum distance separation has been achieved since this school use is it's pre-existing. And then lastly, Your Worship, I should point out that the Thames Centre official plan provides policy direction to allow reasonable expansions to existing institutional uses on existing lots outside of a settlement area. And certainly what is being proposed would be consistent with that policy direction. And then finally, Your Worship, I've also evaluated the zoning change request based on the evaluation criteria available under the Thames Centre official plan. And I'm satisfied that the criteria has been satisfied. In terms of circulation comments, Your Worship, there were no issues identified during the circulation, except from the chief building official. He's noted that the owner shall be required to obtain a building permit for the retail suite, including the submission of supportive documentation, including works that are prepared by an architect licensed in the province, along with a professional engineer. I should also add, Your Worship, that subsequent to the preparation of my report, I did receive comments from the Upper Thames Conservation Authority, to which they have no objection. And then lastly, in terms of the circulation to the public, no responses have been received to date. So it's my recommendation, Your Worship, that this application for zoning bylaw amendment Z26-23 be approved in principle, and that I be directed to prepare the necessary zoning bylaw amendment for council's consideration at the next regular meeting. I'm here to answer any questions, Your Worship. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Bancroft. So do we have some additional information from the applicant or agent? You have someone online here?
Mr. Smith is online as the agent.
Okay, you can go ahead whenever you're ready then.
Thank you, and good evening, Your Worship and members of council. My name is Dan Smith, and I am here on behalf of Finlater and Associates. Stuart couldn't attend tonight, so I'm here on behalf of the owner of the property. We've had the opportunity to review the planner's comments on the application, and certainly concur with his assessment of the planning requirements necessary to give effect to the change in zoning. The site-specific zoning that applies to the property is not uncommon for these types of existing situations. Certainly, we saw that back in the former North Dorchester, West Missouri zoning bylaws, and they were logically carried through to Thames Centre in instances where you had existing uses out there. And in some cases, such as this, you were looking at some possible expansion or a small change in use, as outlined with the retail store. So we thank your planner for his comments, and we are here to answer any questions to the extent possible. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Mr. Smith. So anybody online or in the room? No? Okay, then we'll move over to questions from council. None? Alrighty. So that there being no further discussion, the public meeting is now closed and council can make their decision on the application. So there's a recommendation for approval of zoning bylaw amendment Z26-23. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Deputy Mayor Smybert, and seconded by Councillor Crockett. All in favor? Thank you, that carries. Thanks very much, Mr. Smith.
Thank you.
The next one, Alana, item 8.6, zoning bylaw amendment application Z29-23. MNC Bonche Limited, Michael and Cornelia Bonche applicant. Property address is 16760 Whiten Drive. Go ahead when you're ready.
Thank you, Your Worship. So the purpose and effect of this application is to rezone the subject lands to permit the temporary occupancy of the existing single-unit dwelling while a new single detached dwelling is constructed. The subject property is a 3.5-acre parcel located on the north side of Whiten Drive, west of Missouri Road. The lands contain a single detached dwelling and 2 accessory buildings in the form of sheds. The property is zoned agricultural, which permits a variety of uses, including a dwelling on an undersized lot. The applicants are proposing to construct a new detached dwelling while retaining the existing single detached dwelling on a temporary basis. Within 3 years of the new dwelling being constructed, the applicants intend to remove the existing single detached dwelling from the property. The Thames Center official plan allows temporary uses for up to 3 years, including the construction of a second dwelling while retaining the existing dwelling under certain circumstances and subject to criteria. Staff are satisfied that the criteria have been or are capable of being satisfied by having the owners enter into an agreement with the municipality, which requires the removal of the existing dwelling no later than 6 months after completion and occupancy of the new dwelling or expiry of the temporary use bylaw, whichever occurs first. At that time, the dwelling would have to be removed from the lands. The subject proposal would ensure consistency with the provincial policy statement and conformity with the Middlesex County and Thames Center official plans. The new dwelling is capable of meeting the setback requirements of the A zone. In regards to agency comments received for this application, no concerns were identified. In regards to public comments, none have been received to date. It is planning staff's recommendation, as outlined in the report, that application for temporary use zoning bylaw amendment Z29-23 be approved in principle, subject to a maximum of 3 years, provided the agreement is executed, and that the implementing zoning bylaw amendment be passed by council. I'm here to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Alana. I see the applicants are in the room. Any further information you want to provide?
No, the dwelling that's there will be well before either signed agreement.
So any people online who wish to? Okay. Any questions from members of council? Okay. There being no further discussion, the public meeting is now closed and council can make their decision on the application. So there's a recommendation that application for a temporary use zoning bylaw amendment Z2923 be approved in principle, subject to a maximum of 3 years, provided the attached agreement is executed, incorporating such further restrictions, terms, and conditions as may be deemed necessary by the municipality, and that the implementing zoning bylaw amendment be passed by council. A mover for this, Councillor Heeman, and seconded by Deputy Mayor Smybert. All in favor? And that motion carries. Thank you. Good luck with it. Okay. Item number 9 then, Committee of Adjustment. Alana, I believe you're doing this one as, oh, sorry. Did I miss something? Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot. At this time, we have to, a mover and a seconder that the planning public meetings adjourn at 6:28 p.m. in order to sit as Committee of Adjustment under the Planning Act to consider the application listed on the October 30th, 23 council agenda. Deputy Mayor Smybert and Councillor Heeman, all in favor? And that passes. Thank you. Now, Committee of Adjustment. Okay, Alana, when you're ready.
Thank you, Your Worship. So the purpose and effect of this application is to seek relief from the Thames Center zoning bylaw as it relates to the required interior side yard width to permit the construction of an agricultural storage building with a reduced side yard. The subject property is a 73-acre farm located on the south side of Ebenezer Drive and on the east side of Prospect Hill Road. The property contains a single detached dwelling, a garden shed to be removed, and a ground-mounted solar panel. The applicant is proposing to construct an agricultural storage building with a floor area of approximately 262 square meters and a height of approximately 7.3 meters. The building is proposed to be located in the rear yard and 1.5 meters from the easterly side lot line, whereas the zoning bylaw requires agricultural buildings to be at least 15 meters from a side lot line. The applicant advised the reduced setback is being requested due to the existing septic system located in the rear yard and west of the proposed building. Additionally, the applicant advised the location of the proposed building would be ideally situated at the end of their driveway. Planning staff have conducted our analysis where the variance was evaluated against the 4 tests of a minor variance and are satisfied that the proposed variance meets all 4 tests in that the effects of the variance can be considered minor in nature, can be considered an appropriate use of the land, and the variance maintains the intent of the official plan and zoning bylaw amendment. Unacceptable adverse impacts are not anticipated as the lands to the east are vacant and used for field crop cultivation. The proposed setback would ensure the building can be maintained and the proposed building would be compatible with the neighboring farm. In regards to comments received, the chief building official advised the applicant shall demonstrate a setback of not less than 5 meters between the proposed building and the septic tank and distribution piping of the adjacent on-site sewage system leaching bed to the satisfaction of the chief building official. It is planning staff's recommendation that minor variance application A9-23 be approved subject to the condition noted in the report for the reasons outlined in the report. I'm here to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Elena. Any additional information from the applicant?
I'm here. I'm Mike Elston. I have the property. I don't know if anyone else does it.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Any members from the public online? No. Okay. All right. Then I'll turn it over to council. Any questions from council? Okay. Seeing none, then we'll move to a decision. There's a recommendation for approval of minor variance application A9-23 with 1 condition as appended to the agenda. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Okay, Councillor Hemet, seconded by Deputy Mayor Smyber. All in favor? That motion carries. Okay, thank you very much. All right, so a mover and a seconder that the Committee of Adjustment adjourn at 6:32 p.m. and Council reconvene its regular meeting. Deputy Mayor Smyber and Councillor Crockett. All in favor? Motion carries. Thank you. So we'll move on to item number 10, the adoption of the minutes from the October 16th, 2023 meeting. A mover and a seconder. Deputy Mayor Smyber and seconded by Councillor Crockett. All in favor? Thanks. That motion carries then. Under the item number 11, consent agenda, I'd like to just pull item 11.7 for a comment. So at this time, I'll defer to the clerk on this one. Do we, 11.6, do I read into the record? Okay. All right.
Through you, Your Worship, I just wanted to speak to consent agenda item 11.6. I just wanted to note that Council has supported this program for the past 2 years in the amount of $5,000 per year. This is currently already included in the proposed 2024 budget deliberations in December.
Thank you. So at this time, a mover and a seconder that consent agenda items 11.1 through 11.6 be received as information.
Could I also?
Yes.
Could I also pull out 11.8 for discussion?
11.8, yes. Okay. So going back to the motion, then 11, we'll deal with 11.1 through 11.6 received as information. Deputy Mayor Smybert, are you? Yes. And Councillor Crockett, all in favor? All right, that motion carries then. So going down to 11.7, this is the correspondence in your packages regarding the requesting of support for Bill 21, Fixing Long-Term Care Amendment Act Till Death Do Us Part. Basically, it deals with keeping couples together when they're in care facilities. Having lived through it personally, I would like to support this by resolution. So at this time too, if there's anyone else who wishes to make a comment or no one, okay, all right. So in that particular case, then resolution that consent. I'm sorry. Do we have a consent to go forward on this mover seconder?
To endorse.
Yeah.
I can do that. Yep.
Okay. Deputy Mayor Smybert and Councillor Heeman. All in favor? Okay, thank you. And then moving on to 11.8 then, Tom.
Yes, it's interesting that we finally have a definition of affordable housing. I just find the definition to be quite troubling. As you know, it's 20% of the prevailing market average. What statistics are going to be used to calculate that market average? It does define the parameters, but it doesn't define the source. And again, you know, you could have a situation where property is temporarily rented out at that 20% to receive the discount. At what time? Like normally we receive development fees prior to the sale of the house, and so I'm wondering, is there a rebate provision? It still looks very problematic in terms of how it might be implemented on our end, let alone the financial implications, because I can see that this definition is ripe for loopholes at the moment.
Anybody else wishing to make comments on this? Deputy Mayor Smybert.
Well, I agree with Councillor Heeman, and I think that was the point of the Watson review, right? Was to indicate that they've done a review and they've come to the same conclusions as well. I think the bill is a bit problematic.
Yeah, yeah. I think a lot of people would agree with that. It looks like they're moving sort of towards the 30%, the 40%, like the total debt service ratio, and the GDS and the TDS ratios. They're using that as a bit, but there's obviously more work to be done on this bill. So, any other comments? So at this point then, I'd like a mover and a seconder that consent item, agenda item 11.8 be received as information. Councillor Heeman and seconded by Deputy Mayor Smybert. All in favor? Okay, thank you. Moving on to unfinished business then. Any unfinished business? Noted. Councillor Heeman. Okay. Any notice of motion? Then moving on to new business then.
I'd like to present a motion into new business, and I'll read it into the record. That Council of the Municipality of Thames Centre reaffirm its support for amendment number 27 to the Municipality of Thames Centre official plan as adopted on August 8th, 2002, through the passing of its bylaw number 74/2022, with the effect of redesignating certain lands from agricultural to rural industrial being part of lots 23 and 24, concession 1, geographic township of North Dorchester, municipal or previous previous geographic township of North Dorchester, municipality of Thames Center, and known as 3100 Westchester Bourne and 3124 Westchester Bourne. And that this resolution be circulated to Middlesex County Council ahead of its November 7th, 2023 meeting. And I think this is pertinent given that there are some potential concerns about this addition. And I think that these are prime lands given the economic development occurring with the Volkswagen car plant. This lot and this area would be ideally situated. And if we have a landowner who expressed interest through the official plan process, I think we should support them in following that through, along with the fact that there has been a number of recent changes to the provincial planning statement that would support planning applications in excess of the 25-year supply timeline. So, thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Heeman. So before we move for a seconder for that motion, I'm sorry.
Sorry, through you, Your Worship. Since this is new business being introduced at this meeting, consideration of this matter shall be at the next meeting of council unless the resolution is passed now that it can be considered tonight by just consent of the majority, so by 3 council.
Okay, what's councillors? What are councils?
It's just majority.
Okay.
So I would make that motion and then request that it be considered tonight so that it could meet the timeline.
Okay, do we have a seconder? Deputy Mayor Smyberg. Is there any discussion before we vote from council? Okay, in that case then, all in favor? Thank you. That'll be done. Moving on then to bylaws. That bylaw 8.
That was just to consider it tonight, but now we've actually do the resolution.
Okay. All right. A motion for the resolution. Certainly. That's fine.
So the recommended resolution would be that the Council of the Municipality of Thames Center reaffirm its support of amendment number 27 to the Municipality of Thames Center's official plan as adopted on August 8th, 2022 through the passing of its bylaw number 74-2022 with the effect of redesignating certain lands from agricultural to rural industrial being part of lots 23 and 24, concession 1 SRT, geographic township of North Dorchester, Municipality of Thames Center, and known municipally as 3100 Westchester Bourne and 3124 Westchester Bourne, and that this resolution be circulated to Middlesex County Council ahead of its November 7th, 2023 meeting.
Thank you. Anything else we need? A mover and a seconder, then Councillor Heeman and Councillor Crockett. Do you want to second that? All in favor? That motion carries then. Thank you. Now bylaws. A mover and a seconder that bylaw 80-2023 be given third and final reading, and that bylaw 102-2023 be given first and second reading and be provisionally adopted, and that bylaws 99-2023 to 101-2023 and bylaws 2023 and 104-2023 be adopted as presented. A mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Deputy Mayor Smybert and seconded by Councillor Crockett. All in favor? Okay, that carries. So the next meeting of the council will be Tuesday, November the 14th. 2023 at 5 p.m. here in the chambers. And just a reminder that the municipal office is closed on Monday, November the 13th, in observance of Remembrance Day. The following meeting then will be Monday, November 27th, 2023 at 5 p.m. again here in the chambers. So a motion to adjourn. Deputy Mayor Smybert and Councillor Heeman, all in favor? And the time of that is 6:45 p.m. Thank you all.